Hi, I'm Chris Johnson, and I am here to do an addendum or an addition to the prior presentation with the triple stack. This presentation is going to be a little bit more in depth on just how to load it, so that we're all on the same page. And we'll be coming out to your station, so you'll have hands-on with this as well. So start off some basic terminology, just to make sure we're all on the same page when it comes to talking about this. Obviously, a bite is just a fold of hose over onto itself. The marker is that bite that's a few inches longer than the other bites. It's just a visual indicator. Dutchman is an extra fold of hose that helps orientate the coupling in the correct direction. The right side is going to refer to the officer side. The left side is going to refer to the driver side. That's as you're looking at the back of the pumper. And a stack is going to be 3 bites. The marker's on the bottom, and then your second and third bites are going to be on top of that. Just some basic terminology so that when we're talking about this, everybody's on the same page. It's essentially a flat load, but it's stacked in 3 instead of 1, and it goes always from left to right instead of back and forth like our flat load. Pretty simple, makes more sense when you see it, which we talked about a little bit in our last presentation as well. So one of the first things we have to do is determine if you're going to need to have a flat load on the very bottom of your stacks. And the reason for this is you don't want to, obviously having stacks of 3, you don't want to end up with a single stack on top of your entire hose bed. You would like to have that completely level or equal all the way across. So you want to determine how many bites of hose you have up there currently with your 750 feet, and then figure out if you're going to need to flat load any sections to make it even out better. So one of the things you do about that is count how many bites, or one way to do that is count how many bites you have currently with your flat loaded hose load, and then how many columns you have in that reverse bank. This next slide will help us figure out if we need to do any flat loads. So you determine your number of bites. That's what's in the left column there, the 26 through 34. Obviously we can play with this if you have different than that. And then your columns are in the next 2 rows there, with 3 and 4 being the most common. I don't remember anybody having more or less than that. So essentially, if you have 28 bites currently and you have 3 columns of hose, you don't need to do any flat loading at all. You can start right off with the triple stack. If you have 30 bites, which is probably going to be the most common in 3 columns, you need to do 1 row of flat loading on the bottom, just so that you end up with an even amount of hose on top of the triple stack, so you don't have anything that's going to want to fall over. And this will make more sense when we come out and load the hose on your pumper. How to start, excuse me. You always start with the female coupling in the back left corner, just like our current practice. So closest to the driver. Always load from left to right, so from driver's side to officer side. If you need to do your flat loads, you're always going to start with those as well. So if you do 1 row of flat loads or 2 rows, you want to do those before you start your triple stacks. And then after you complete a row, you always go back over to that left side, that driver's side, to start your next row. So this is a real quick video of the flat loads. So this would be like in the case of engine 8 where we have 1 row of flat loads. So we start with that female coupling in that far back left corner, nearest to the driver. We determine based on the number of bites we have in our 750 feet and the number of columns we have that we have to do 1 row of flat loading. So there's our first, second, and then you'll see end up on the third. When you're done with your third one, if you're doing only 1 row, you move, or even 2 rows, you'll move all the way back over to that left side to start your next row, instead of your traditional flat load where you just would go right to left at this point. After you get your flat loads done, this is where you're going to start doing the triple stacks. Or you may even start with the triple stacks, like I said, if you don't need any of the flat loads. You always start with your first bite. It's going to be your visual marker, about 2 to 3 inches longer. It's truly just a visual indicator of where the bottom of your stack is. And then the next 2 bites will be stacked directly on top of that visual marker, a little bit shorter, so that you can see the difference between those. Again, after you complete a row of triple stacks, you move all the way back over to the left or that driver's side to start your next row. So this is just a video of running 1 triple stack. So we just got done doing the flat load over here. So we had three bites of flat load. We're going to start our first triple stack on the driver's side. Start with that visual marker. It's about 3 to 4 inches longer. It could be used to help pull that stack out. However, it's designed more for a visual indicator and not necessarily to physically help you get that stack out of there. Your next 2 bites are going to be just a slight bit shorter. So that was your second bite. And then your third bite, and that is your entire stack. So 3 bites in a stack, starting with the visual marker and then 2 shorter stacks, or 2 shorter bites. Then you move over to the middle one on ours, moving to the right, again starting with that visual marker. And then 2 shorter bites. When you get that stack done, continue moving to the right towards the officer's side. We're going to make our visual marker and so forth. After that, you're going to move all the way back over to your left and continue doing your stacks of 3 until you have your completed hose load. At the very end, your very last stack is going to vary a little bit. Some are going to have maybe 2 bites, some will have 4 bites, some may end up with 3 bites with just a little bit of an odd Dutchman in there. It's going to be very dependent on a few variables: hose bed length, width, whether you have 3 columns, 4 columns, your total hose length. There are some out there that may have had a coupling that had slipped that they reattached to a 49-foot stretch of hose instead of 50-foot. How big of a Dutchman you put in there throughout the hose bed. Do you do small ones, large ones? There's going to be a lot of variables. You're going to have to play with it a little bit to make sure you have it so that it fits correctly in your pumper. This is a video from the last segment on to the end of the full hose bed loading. We'll talk a little bit as we go through this. So finishing up with that first row of triple stack all the way across from the driver's side to the officer's side. So this is the finished one on the officer's side. As you can see right there, we're going to have to do some sort of a Dutchman in there. Keep that coupling orientated in the right direction. And when this stack is completed, you move all the way back over to the driver's side, again moving all the way to the left to start your next row. Unlike our traditional flat load where you go back and forth, this one's always left to right. The importance of that is that when you drop a supply line, especially a double supply line where you're using some of that reverse bank, it's very helpful to know that the stack you need to grab for your apartment lay is always your highest and to the right when you're looking at it. By loading left to right, it's always going to end up being that way. You never have to determine which stack you're going to pull off first or even second. You'll always know which direction it's going to come out. So we moved all the way back over to that driver's side. We're starting a new stack. Start with that visual marker. Again, 2 bites on top of that for a total of 3 bites, and that is your stack. You'll do that left side, middle, and then your officer side, your right side. On ours, we end up with 9 stacks of 3, so 27 bites. When we had 750 feet flat loaded on there, we had 30 bites. Hence the reason we have 3 flat loaded bites on the very bottom. That helps even it out so that you don't have an odd stack on top. If we had 10 stacks total, if we did this all in triple stack and didn't do the flat load on the bottom, you would have 3 rows of 3, and then you'd have that 10th one kind of sitting on top by itself, which would obviously not hold very well as you're doing your normal driving about daily. It'd have a tendency to want to fall over and just really not hold its shape or form and make it very difficult to to deploy. Finishing up the middle, we're going to move over to that officer side. And I apologize for the long video, the entire video of this. We're doing this on purpose just so that you, if for some reason you're having a hard time, you can actually just sit here and watch it and see how it's going together. Again, we're going to need another Dutchman in there. And your length of Dutchmans, whether you do short ones, long ones, is going to play a little bit of a factor into that very last stack, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. So here we are loading up that last one. You get done with the officer side. Again, move all the way left. And start again on that left side, that driver side, visual marker with 2 shorter bites on top. In our apparatus, each stack is approximately 70 feet of hose. So we're moving on to this final stack, which should be on the officer's side, the highest point. Like I said earlier, there's a lot of factors that go into whether you're going to have 2 bites, 3 bites, 4 bites, maybe a little bit shorter, longer. It's a little difficult to tell with the number of variables. Hopefully, if all goes to plan, that this is a 3 stacks or 3 bites right here to make the final stack the same as the others. It's not a huge issue on if whether it is or isn't. This first one most likely will be deployed out during a supply late anyways, and if not, if it say it is 4 bites in height, and you don't feel like you want to take that full amount of hose, it's a little bit too much. You can always take a shorter or a smaller amount of bites in your shoulder load. If you feel like you want to grab 2, you can grab 2. The visual marker is just to let you know where the bottom of that stack is so that you don't accidentally grab out of 2 different stacks. So we have just a tad bit longer on that one. You can see there's probably about 2-3 feet left. So we'll go ahead and connect that to the forward side with the double female, just like we do currently with our flat loads. And stick that on top, and that is your completed triple stack hose load. Not a lot of difference, a few little things. Obviously going 3 high on each one and always moving left to right. Other than that, it's very similar to a flat load. Gives you some of the benefits of an accordion with having a flat. This is what it should look like at the end. You can see those visual markers just a little bit of a telltale to let you know where the bottom of the stack is. So when you go to grab a stack, it's visually easy to determine where to grab. Some of the things, why do we need a row or two of flat load prior to starting that triple stack on sump pumpers? We talked about this a little bit. It's truly just to make sure that when you're finished, your triple stacks are even all the way across the top, so you don't have a hose that has a tendency to want to fall over. It just helps keep it a little bit more even. Why do you need the visual marker? The visual marker is just so that when you go to grab a stack, you're not grabbing two different stacks of hose. Because the stack of hose right below another stack is not the next one in line, you end up pulling an odd amount of hose out, and it can cause some issues. It'd be like grabbing a flat load and grabbing two different bites of hose on your flat load. That would create problems as well. So that marker is truly just a visual indicator where your bottom of your stack is. Why are we loading from the left side to the right side each time, back and forth, instead of back and forth like a flat load? And that's just so that you can ensure that every time you go to grab your triple stack to deploy it for an apartment lay, you always know if you grab it the highest and to the right, or the officer's side, whatever the highest and to the right is, you will always be grabbing the correct one to deploy out for your apartment lay. If you have any other questions, still confused, have an issue, something comes up that we hadn't thought about, please give us a call. Myself on A shift, Chris Thomas on B shift, Aaron Moriucci on C shift. We're the three that are going to be going out and showing you guys this out on the line, helping you guys load your pumpers and deploy an apartment lay real quick so that everybody has a hand on it. So if anybody has any questions, please give us a call. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.